All right, so I was going to ask, we've talked about this actually quite a bit over the last, several years. How if as a Hollis resident, you can sign up to get minutes from the select board or from the budget committee or from the recreation committee, whatever, like sent right to your inbox. Can we just do an automatic blast from Parent Square? Like, here's the agenda, here's a link to the agenda for our meeting coming up on Wednesday,
We
August
can.
13th.
We also have
These
the
are the
ability,
minutes, boom.
we also have the ability, which our plan was to put in place this school year because we had too many software implementations last year, to have folks sign up through Diligent if they want to know anytime anything's been updated, whether that's like the minutes posting or the agendas posted for whatever committees they want. So let's say they really want Hollis policy and Hollis board, they can sign up for that, or maybe they want only board meetings from Hollis and co-op. They can choose what they want, and then they would be notified when there have been updates.
That'll be great.
When do you expect that?
Yeah.
This fall.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I don't know
That
if
would be
this
great.
is doable because of some of our, some of the limitations of being a board, but I can understand that it would be a lot to ask someone to read all of the notes of our meeting,
I was thinking the same thing.
And I don't know if we are able to provide a summary, or I think my thought is we're not able to do that because then it's sort of one person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe what
I think
it
that's
is here are the things that were here, the topics that were discussed, and they can decide what thing they want to dig into, and that way it is an unbiased summary.
It could end up being I think about with the select board, I get, the week before, I get, this is the agenda.
Yeah.
And the week after, I get the minutes. And so I know from the week before, when I looked at the agenda, whether or not I'm interested in looking at the minutes.
Yeah.
And I think we can expect people to read them if they're interested. You skim them. I skim the select board minutes. I skim the budget committee minutes.
Just skimming, Ann?
I'm just skimming, but you know what? I'm doing it.
But I like that, Jess, especially if it's a Parent Square push, if that's something that's at all possible, because the Parent Square post can be like, here's where you can find our meeting minutes, here were the topics that were discussed, and they'll know whether they even need to click into it or not, versus making them click in to be like, meh,
Yeah.
And honestly,
Because it's true, everybody has something that's they're most passionate about.
Yeah, if we're just doing and maybe that's the same thing as the agenda, to say this is the topics that were discussed. Do you know what I mean? That's probably a little different, but.
I do like your, I feel like I'm in a move somebody.
It really is creepy.
I do like your comment though, which is and I'm aware that we have legal components where we have to be cautious about official versus unofficial components.
Yeah, we
But-
looked into this a lot for co-op.
Yeah, but getting that, you get the blurb in the newsletter, so I'm going to talk about HBS, you can get a blurb from the principal, and here's a paragraph of what's going on at the school, right? It's sort of the yes, if once a month, it's from the board, hey, enrollment committee, we're seeing the numbers above what was projected. And that's it. It's a statement, and we can link to for the official thing, go to the meeting minutes here, right? That way you can have the top level, because that's what everybody's really looking at, right?
Yeah.
They don't want necessarily the nitty gritty unless they decide to drill in. They're looking for, what are we talking about? What are the hot topics that are of a concern to the board or a parent or a citizen, right?
Right. I think it's interesting that we're having this conversation for FY '27, right? This is what we're setting goals for, but these are things that
We can do now.
are applicable to now. So it's just a matter of getting some information about what some of the things we're allowed to do.
Yeah.
I think the Diligent updates, signups are going to be incredibly helpful for people that are interested. But I do think that there are enough, especially new members to our community that don't know Diligent. They don't know to dig in and go find things. And if we're like, you can sign up for Diligent updates, they'll be like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
My kid has 17 things I have to do. I don't know what this one is.
Yeah.
So I think that at least even a Parent Square once a quarter thing, or if we want to do it monthly,
I
that's
think
something that we can enact right now.
I think Parent Square once a month. I think Parent Square, here's the agenda for the meeting next week, here are the notes from last week.
Yeah.
If that's the bare minimum that we can do, that's still, I think, meaningful.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can speak more about what the co-op, when the co-op was looking into this, what they learned they could do or not do.
Yeah, so what we actually, I mean, there was discussion of could our students be present and sort of take notes so that that could be maybe an article in their newspaper, that the Capcron, which is online, and it was deemed that that's a slippery slope. We wanted to figure out ways that an article could be put in the Rotary News Online, same slippery slope. And
Just
so,
like a reporter from the Rotary come,
correct.
that would fit.
That they wanted to come every week, or every month, excuse me, that could become more of a regular article, but if it was just every once in a while, then why 1 month and not another month? And so, the legal was really of the opinion that you have agendas posted with all the content and all the minutes. I'm just trying to look to see what does it look like? I mean, I read the minutes because they come to my inbox, but what does it look like? Can I click on an agenda item and get to the minutes? Because that would be, that would make it easier. If we pushed out an agenda after the fact and with the minutes loaded.
I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the agenda has the things that kick you down to where the PDFs are, so.
Right.
I don't see where we could do that. I think probably parent square and it just being like, here are the topics discussed, here's the agenda, or here are the minutes, is gonna probably be the easiest, most concise way to do this. And that might even be something that could come from the SAU office once the minutes are completed and filed, correct? Maybe, I don't want to task anybody else with that kind of stuff, but just to keep
Send agenda
keep it
and
from
minutes
go-
out.
Right, instead of it going through other people to be submitted to Parent Square. I don't know if it makes sense to have it go right from the people who post it online. But that can be one to talk about, but I like
Yep.
that, I think there's a lot to digest, especially when you're new to the community, of where to find information and how to get involved and how to have your voice heard.
Yeah.
So,
And to be honest, some of this is coming from I get asked at the bus stop a lot,
Yep.
like, hey, how did the meeting go? What happened? And even when I refer them over to the websites and stuff, I know what they're looking for, right? They're looking for here are the high-level bullets of what we
Yep.
kind of chatted about, and, like, you should go look at this, or whatever. And I feel like those conversations likely, if I was in multiple bus stops, would happen on a regular basis. People want to know, but going and finding it and keeping up to date is hard, especially as parents.
so I think the diligent signups are gonna be key to
Yep.
promote on Parent Square, and if we can pop on Parent Square too.
And
Even
maybe
in just being like, message from the school board, bam, here's what they talked about here.
is it, I guess as a follow-up to that part, is it within our reason, because I don't know what Parent Square has available, but like after 6 months of it or whatever, to do a poll to see if anyone found it of interest, like, because that's always the hard part, right? You're gonna try something, and the feedback part is the hard part, so I don't know if that type
Yeah,
of
we
thing
could
is.
push out a poll.
But
Okay.
we can push out a poll, but I think you also can just look at the metrics of who clicked on stuff, right? You guys have access to that.
We can see how many people appreciate the post.
I wasn't sure they had those metrics,
Be
so that's
honest,
what I was
there are a lot of
Sure,
posts
if they
I
have the
appreciate,
metrics,
but I
can
don't.
look into it, certainly.
Sure. But yes, I wouldn't mind a gauge of some kind after a trial period to figure out, like, hey, is this working? Is it not working? Do we need to come back and talk about something else? Like,
Sounds good.
Carol, would you like to close public comment?
I was about to, but I wanted to make sure we were done here. Great, so thank you. So closing public input at 7:09 PM. Would have been sooner, but we lost power. These are great. I think we'll add this to the final, kind of formalize it next month. And if there are any others we want to discuss and add, we can do so then. But I think they're not lofty, but they are things that we really want to make happen.
strategically linked to things that they're gonna need.
Right, and this will be for fiscal '27.
So it's a little bit about what they're doing this year and then where they want to go.
Okay,
So you'll see that in the next month. And you saw their report out at the end of the year.
yes,
Only, but that started with a
okay.
presentation at the start,
So
yeah.
that'll happen, okay, good. All right.
So Chuck, I got you.
Okay.
We're good.
I'll shut up, Carol, you
Yeah.
keep going.
You're fine. This is all new to you. We've already done this.
It's all new, I'm still like,
It's still
breaking
new,
in.
it's still new to me too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to make everything better.
I'm kidding.
I don't know what's going on.
All right, so now we're going to move into our deliberation portion of the program, and this is where we get into policies. So our deliberation talks about, like our agenda mentions, to see what action the board will take regarding the proposed policy memo, which of course has all of them listed, but as is usually the case, we take them individually. So we will be doing that with our individual policies, so I'll be taking motions for those. So our first one is to see what action the board will take regarding the proposed policy memo, policy JICJ, unauthorized communication devices, which is new to the district. Given its first reading, I'll accept a motion to accept the first reading of policy JICJ, unauthorized communication devices. So moved. A second?
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, so, as part of recently passed legislation, we now have a bell-to-bell ban on cell phones and smart watches and all that kind of good stuff. Part of the law requires that the board adopt a policy and that we adopt procedures. So, we worked as an administrative team to develop a start to some school-based procedures. We worked with legal counsel on what that looks like for any possible exceptions to those rules, and we put that out in our student handbook. Both, this is where we plan to go, and also the policy is in progress. So anybody who has registered their students already through PowerSchool, one of the things you signed off on is that you've read the handbook. That handbook has language that's brand new related to this. Now, because it's in the mix of a very long document, all of our principals in all 6 of our buildings are sending it out this Friday as a separate standalone communication about our updated cell phone policies as they are currently being proposed. But throughout this 3-reading process of this policy, the expectation is that we get parent feedback, whether to the policy committee or in public input, so that we can finalize what it's going to look like in Hollis School District. So this is bell to bell. There should be no use, no viewing of any kind of cell phone or personal communication device. We've always had our district-owned Chromebooks that students are one-to-one assigned. That will be the same. So we've also really only had no cell phones in our schools, but sometimes there have been some small exceptions for very specific reasons, to assist with learning in various ways. But Lauren worked pretty hard with directors across the state to figure out alternate ways to meet educational needs and goals for students without the use of a cell phone. So overall, I think this is really good move forward, although it's a pretty heavy lift, and will require a lot of back and forth communication with families and input from the community.
So just to clarify for people, this, right, includes like smartphones, or excuse me, smartwatches.
Smartwatches, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
I
usually
didn't
what
know.
you're going to see the most in our elementaries.
So they just can't wear them?
Correct.
They have to put them somewhere? I know a lot of people when this started coming out, they were asking, so are there going to be like pouches that the kids put their
No
thing
pouches.
in the classroom or anything like that? So I just wanted to clear that up. That's not,
In the backpack, put away, not in use.
So, just, this was what I saw, but I want to double check it, because I was originally curious, because I'd heard Massachusetts was implementing something similar and got confused as whether this was federal or not. So this is New Hampshire statute now, and it was attached to the budget, if I recall, when that was how it was passed, if people are looking for it. Okay.
Yeah, and RSA 189, that's the personal communication device. Lauren, which is it's in the communication that we will be pushing out as a separate communication on Friday, how it came to be.
Okay.
I
just
don't
for
remember.
anyone who doesn't have a kid and is watching, this came in from the New Hampshire State.
Yes.
And was attached to that. They can look it up accordingly.
And so did the language from this, usually we get example policy language from the New Hampshire School Board Association. Is that where this language came from?
That's where we started, and then we made some edits based on, what we felt worked for our district and what we, because it's a sample policy that's K to 12.
Right.
So a lot of times we have to make some adjustments to their suggested language.
I think the only thing I noticed is where it says first reading, there's an extra one in front of it.
Yes, no, we're not doing this until 12,025.
I mean, you might, because we'll be here.
Yeah, sorry, I did notice that today, but it was already in the packet,
No, you're totally fine.
I think this is well-written. Thank you for doing it. I think that, first of all, I think people need to understand this, whether we support it or not, this wasn't our choice. This has come from the state. Personally, I think it's a great move. But I just wanted to bring up a couple things. I had a parent contact me who wasn't able to come tonight, who saw the agenda. Crazy. Happens. So I want to bring up her note, and then I went to the Hollis Student Handbook to look through it for something else we're discussing tonight, and then I just have a note just to bring up. So the note from the handbook is on page 40. So I saw that you put this new policy in the handbook. Nice, and thank you for putting that in red, and all the changes in red. They made it so much easier. But on page 40, I thought it might be confusing to a family who wanted to be confused. Where it says under policy JICL, School District Internet Access for Students, and there's where it says personally owned internet devices in school. And I don't know, I'm just saying, I don't know if that needs to be revisited in light of this new policy.
Okay. Take a look.
So I just wanted to bring that up. And then the parent brought up that Stanford University has this system called TAPS. It stands for, sorry, hold on. Should have had that ready.
I have it in,
Yes, thank you, because I sent that to Jess earlier.
toolkit for assessing phones in schools.
And so they've created surveys for administrators, teachers, parents, and students that could be used. There's also a user guide available, and the surveys they've created can be made copies of in Google Forms and be completely edited. And I just wanted to bring it up just as something to think about, because I have a feeling there's going to be a huge range of reactions to this policy, and it might be good data either for talking points or even for our own reflection, et cetera, to see how attitudes of various stakeholders change over time towards this. So I just wanted to put that suggestion out there, and I also want to put out there, from having worked in some schools that had policies like this that were not that did not come down from the state, there were just school policies. I find the biggest challenge isn't the students, it's getting all the adults on board. And I don't just say teachers, I mean all the adults, like any adult in the building who sees something and turning a blind eye. And I just hope that everybody gets on board, because consistency in messaging from grown-ups is really important, especially the age group in our district. And thanks for the work you did on this. I think you wrote a very clear policy that is not difficult to read. I had no edits for it at all.
And thank you for sending the TAPs. I did see it this afternoon, but didn't have time to click and look through it, but I'll definitely.
And thank you for the parent who shared it.
Yes.
So, while this might be common sense with policies, I get a little nervous about it. Nowhere in here, especially with the restrictions stipulating in no event, and with the exceptions not outlining it, does it say that a student could use their device in case of an emergency. It's common sense that they should. If they feel unsafe and need to contact someone, I'd assume be able to use it. And I'm thinking about a lockdown situation or something where they're stuck somewhere.
So in a lockdown, we actually don't want students to use
Okay.
their cell
Yes.
phone.
And that's good to know, but that was what I was thinking of as okay, so I'm in trouble, there's no adult around, I have a device with me. Do I call an emergency number? Or if I'm with someone and they're having a medical event, do I call an emergency number? Or do I leave them and go and try and find somebody? And the policy really doesn't allow for the latter option. And having had some minimal first aid training, it's like you don't want to just leave a person who's having an issue or whatever. So that was the only concern I had with it. I understand that wasn't the intent, and again, common sense dictates, okay, what happens, but since it's a no event, specifically bolded, I'm just curious where that left us.
Well, they shouldn't have their phone on them.
Right. Sure.
So they shouldn't have it, well, and students shouldn't be left unattended. So there are a lot of things that would have to be put into play that should never have gotten to that point anyway.
Fine.
And
My larger
developmentally,
concern
the age
is-
group we're looking at too, developmentally, like, for them to make those decisions in those emergency situations, they would likely go get an adult versus calling and deciding who to call in an emergency. Do you know what I mean? I mean, just, you know, you look at the
I do
age
know
group.
what you mean. I am, in this particular case, probably leaning towards Hughes and not HPS,
Sure.
obviously. And I'm aware of some parents, even on my street, where the number in the phone is to the parent. And so they've been told, hit send twice, it will call me.
Right.
And I'm actually more concerned, to some extent, outside of the facility on a field trip, where they get separated or something, and they're nervous about what to do. And I'm not trying to be overly on it, I'm just, I can imagine instances in this particular age of communication where it could come up. And based on the policy, the answer is no, don't do that. And if that's the intent, that's okay, but that's what I wanted to bring up as a concern.
I think that is the intent, is that it is no event. And, yeah, I think that is the intent, and that the idea is that, you know, an adult should be the one to reach out.
And they wouldn't, and it does pertain, the law does pertain to field trips also. Like
I know,
any-
that's
yeah,
why
yeah,
I
yeah.
was-
So
So
I
they
think,
shouldn't
so
have
they
their
shouldn't
device.
have their device on them.
But it's stored in their backpack.
But they don't even always have their backpack on field trips, depending on, it might be left on the bus, or it might be, they might not even, so
Okay.
really, it's meant to not be on their person.
So, in light of that, the language about the field trip says students participating in field trips or other activities outside of the school day shall abide by the rules and consequences established for personal comm devices set by the designated supervisor for the activity. It doesn't say no. That leaves the door open to, it could be a different rule on a particular field trip based on that. So I don't know if if the in no event needs to extend to that, then I think we may want to work the
Yeah, I mean,
language differently.
we definitely have to look into that. A huge consideration, not in this district, is the DC trip.
Yes.
But really, there's only one field trip that extends beyond the school day. So, once again, it doesn't really apply to 99%. So it's absolutely, this is a first read, and we have already asked ourselves all these questions and tried to get those answers. What's the intent? What does the law say? Let's go back to the language, back and forth. And, keep the comments, the questions, the what-ifs coming, and then, that's how we have to clean this language up.
Okay.
So, another note, I guess, maybe to consider is whether or not being on the bus is considered part of the school day. And I think of that mostly in the sense that if a fifth or sixth grader, something like that, is looking at something on the internet that might be inappropriate, and I know we try and separate kids on the bus, but that all depends on what age groups are on that particular bus and that particular route. I'm not saying you need to have an answer for this right now, but maybe we need to kind of think about also, I know there are procedures in the handbook for poor behavior on the bus, but do we need to think of something that's specific to inappropriate use of internet or phones on the bus
I think that's
before that happens, and something, a young child could be presented with something that a parent wouldn't want them to be.
So this policy says it's bell to bell, so it
Yes.
does not cover school.
That's why I'm bringing
But
it
there
up.
are the different bus policies could, if we had an appetite to update them as such.
I do think in some ways, that's almost a spot where, when you think about specifically your example, Anne, of a kid showing another kid something inappropriate,
basically ends up suggesting that the phone could be used on the bus with the understanding that it's being used within acceptable parameters defined by acceptable use policy, behavior on the bus, et cetera.
Well, and I know in particular of an example where a parent actually usually does have the kid have their phone on the bus because they trap the phone to know when to be at the bus stop.
Yep.
So
I was thinking the
it's
same.
it's a tricky.
Yeah, and I think, if you were in a city where,
You take the bus to school.
you took
Yeah,
the bus,
city bus,
the city
absolutely.
bus to school, it's a little different. We have kids that walk a half mile, in a wooded area, and, so there are a lot of pieces that we know we need to consider, but part of that is getting feedback from the community.
Okay, so at this point, the motion on the table is to accept the first reading of JICJ, unauthorized communication devices. All in favor of accepting first reading?
Thank you.
Our next policy is IHBA, Programs for Pupils with Disabilities. I'll accept a motion to accept the first reading of policy IHBA as presented. So moved. Second,
Second.
discussion.
Lauren, do you want to take this?
So this was just an update due to RSA, so we kind of, struck out a lot of larger pieces of it to really focus on the recommendations from a sample that was provided to us as well. So it just is revamped and it separates out IDEA and Section 504 a little bit more cleanly than the prior version. But this was taken from a sample that was given to us as an update as well.
Yeah, it definitely makes much clearer.
Yeah.
Makes a lot more sense, in my opinion, having these stickers. Any discussion or questions?
One question I had that kind of connects to the big book is I've seen
The big book.
You need a new label for it.
I know. That'll go on the side.
I think on here I see for the minimum age I see like 3 years, and then I think I saw on there a lot 3 years, but then there were certain times where it said 2.5 years, and I was curious if there's some differentiation.
So if I think I know what you're referencing, 2.5 years is references preschool, and when we can begin to get referrals for preschool age as 2.5 years old. 3 years, you hear 3 years for reevaluation timeline. I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right pieces.
Well, 3 years old is when the services become our responsibility.
Right, our responsibility.
As opposed to, it goes from like a family plan to an educational plan, and that hits at 3 years, but 2.5 is when
When we get the referrals.
we start finding out.
To do the evaluation.
Any other discussion on IHBA? Seeing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of accepting this first reading policy IHBA, Programs for Pupils with Disabilities?
Thank you.
Our next one is IHBAM. I'll accept a motion to accept the first reading of IHBAM, District Special Education Policy and Procedurals Manual, which is the district.
So she can have it.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
So as Lauren already said, this is an optional policy, but it really just solidifies that we're reviewing this annually, and that it confirms that you'll take a look at it, and that, it's gone before the board, to know that we've done our due diligence and made any updates per RSA changes or anything like that.
She's like, I added 3 more pages.
We can
Well,
edit,
there are pieces that, we got.
we can
Well,
edit,
and I'm
instead of
glad
here
you
and after
moved
the
waiver.
manual, we can change it to here and after the big book.
The big book, that would be so funny.
Yeah, but
The next board would be like, what?
So, just for clarification, so it's an optional policy, but it still has the same effect as a mandatory policy because it's included within
if
our
we
policy.
adopt it, then yes, it has the same effect, but we are not, there is no RSA that says the board will adopt a policy.
Yeah, no, I
Just,
get that.
identifying that we have special ed procedures manual, but there is an RSA saying that we will have a procedures manual. So we've always had that, but this just, I think it brings to light what we do. It makes it gives a public audience, because sometimes in prior years, we've heard, oh, it's so overwhelming for parents, it's so complicated, we don't know where to go. And so I think this is a good opportunity to say that we're talking about it, it's here. Here you can find all of the relevant policies, and here are the people that you would ask questions to.
So I think my only comment on this particular one would be that in section 1, you have it update the district manual. In section 2, about midway, changes or additions to the manual, I would just make the wording consistent of the district manual. I know manual is capitalized, so it implies it, but it may just make it cleaner.
Thank you.
We also just have to adjust our numbering, because we moved the criteria waiver to the end. So evaluator credentials just needs to start with number 1. And then,
I don't know what you're talking about.
so we're on,
We're on IHBAM.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm on IHBAB.
Oh, sorry, I was like,
Wait, let
was
me
like,
pull that one up.
I know, I was like, wait, where's the?
You have skipped.
Yeah, and then this also just notes that, when there's smaller changes, that the superintendent can approve some smaller changes without board approval, as long as she identifies and dates,
Actually, yeah, sorry, just going back to the manual thing, I think the confusing part is, and I missed it, the front part says the procedures manual is here in the manual, but then it calls out the district manual, and I don't know what the difference between the district manual and the procedural manual is.
Yeah, I think in number 1,
They just dropped in the word district.
Yeah, I think
yeah, I
it's
think we
Just
just
to
take
mess
out
with
the
me.
Yeah, we're gonna take
district.
that out.
I got it.
All right, any other discussion here? Good. So at this time, I will take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the first reading of IHBAM? Our next policy is up for second reading. Its first reading took place in June during our June 3rd meeting. This is policy JJJ-R. So I'll accept a motion to amend the first paragraph by adding the word resident before home educated, and in section C by deleting reference to JJIB, and accept the second reading of JJJ-R, access to public school programs by non-public charter school and home education students, as amended. So moved. A second?
Second.
Discussion.
So we had addressed some concerns about section B1 by adding the word resident into it. We also just got clarification that we don't need JJIB because that's a policy about sports, which we don't have. And then just to note that we're going to be rescinding IHGB and IHGBR once JJR is enacted.
And why are they being rescinded again? Please remind me.
Because this is replacing.
I know, I'm sorry, what were the other two policies addressing? Just
Same
basically
thing.
the same stuff?
Yeah.
And we're just rolling it into a single policy now, basically? Okay. And now this is a new to district policy, just as a reminder.
So the reason we had added the word resident was there was like some concerns about like, oh, like this isn't supposed to be for somebody who lives in Nashua or, but just making sure like that totally clear.
Yep, I like that.
And I believe IHGB was for home educated students. This one rolls in charter school students as well, and so the recommendation is to put it under J and not I.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. All right, any other discussion?
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jeff.
I'm not sure if, maybe it's just sometimes it's done, but the links at the bottom, because usually with policies, they're like references.
Yeah.
I was curious about, the links to like assembly, links. It's just sometimes because of,
So they're in the sample policy, and because those change, I usually like to delete them and just identify the code of the policy, and so that way we don't have dead links. So we should get rid of those. For third read.
This is a small thing, just, I brought it, the title ends up being a little confusing, because it looks like it's a non-public charter school, applies if the charter school is non-public, but I think you actually,
Well,
based on,
it's
it
commas
needs,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
non-public,
Oxford
comma,
comma needs to
charter
show up in
school,
Yes.
comma, and home educated. And I don't know, I feel like we need a hyphen between home and educated. That's it, but sorry, nitpicking, just so it reads cleaner, but otherwise, no issues.
I had a clarification in section C, actually, because as it states, in writing by parent guardian to the building. I wasn't sure in this case which building in particular they were supposed to bring the writing to. Request by non-district
First
students.
first sentence under C.
Yep,
To the building in which that they're requesting the participation in.
So it would
To the
typically
person,
go by grade
building
level, it goes to
administrator.
principal.
okay.
Building
So
principal.
he's saying if a parent is reading this and they say, I'm supposed to bring it to the building, what building?
Is it the SAU?
we
Is it
need to-
the
right.
school
No,
they're going to?
I
Like,
could have sworn I wrote principal, wait, let me look. Maybe I did not. I think
building
the word
principal
principal,
is
I
added
apologize, the word
before.
principal should likely be after building. I wonder if I pressed delete after I typed it. So the word principal should be there, and then that would go by grade level. So if a
Totally.
student was in fourth grade, they'd go to the.
no, it really was just a generic
No,
building.
that
request.
matters, that was a good catch.
Principal, right after that, so I apologize.
I've read a few policies where that happened to me. I'm like, where?
And I have a follow-up on that as well, because number 4, where we say C4.
Yep.
The building principal provides a coach, man, parent, guardian to chaperone an event. If the same applies to parent, guardians of enrolled students, are we going to make them required to be SAU?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I think we need to say, like, put an asterisk or something that says, the rules apply, that they have to be an SAU 41 approved volunteer.
Sure.
I
I'm looking.
I believe somewhere
I know, I
it
could have sworn that was
says
there too, let me see.
that basically everything that applies to an enrolled student applies to participating students, but I don't.
It's probably in the cross-reference
It
documents,
might be in another.
Yeah.
because it's, yeah.
Might be in JJA,
That was what I was thinking.
JJJ.
Oh, you're right. So JJJ is the actual policy. This is more the procedures, how to do it. But in JJJ, I do believe, we can check, but I do believe it says
Yeah.
that basically the same rules and criteria apply for eligibility.
The only reason I think that maybe we want to call it out in number 4 is because it's called out in 5 and 6. Participating non-district students are expected to abide
Oh,
by
yeah.
Okay.
those other rules and other, the same thing with board policies relative to athletic participation. That's fine.
Good feedback.
Yep.
So we had
Any
3
other-
reads.
Any other on, good then. Any other feedback on JJJR? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor to amend, to accept JJJR as amended, second reading? Thank you. That was a terribly worded, sick vote, sorry about that. All right, next up is a second reading of policy EH-R, which is new to the district. I'll take a motion to amend the title by correcting the spelling of school and in section 2 by deleting the word encourage, and accept the second reading of EH-R, public access to school district records, procedures for public access to district records, right to know requests as amended. So moved. A second?
Second.
Discussion.
So changes, we corrected the spelling of school. That was a good thing that we did. It seems like there is maybe a little bit of legal ambiguity about if we have, that maybe we need to be able to allow verbal requests. So we took the word encourage out of the title of 2. We talked about that last time. We added an RSA reference, we made some minor grammatical
do, just so you know, as procedure, it wouldn't necessarily go in policy, but anytime we get a request, if it's verbal, on the phone, whatever, we always follow up in an email to document what that message was, how we heard it, how we perceived it, and then that person, we ask for confirmation from that person, whether they do or don't confirm varies, but even if they don't, we have it in writing, we did try to corroborate with them in writing, and that's our procedure.
Great.
So for clarification on the device thing, I'm assuming it's because we would be forcing them to pay for the device in order to get the freedom of information component, and that would be seen as blocking them possibly from getting access from a legal standpoint?
I would assume that's the legal standpoint.
Okay. My follow-on is the why, and I don't know, I'm assuming we have a cyber policy of some kind of what devices are allowed to be plugged into our networks. Okay. Do we need to come up with a procedure where this is presented to us to avoid compromising networks, or are we not?
No, I think what we said was we wouldn't insert the device into our network. So we would gather the information in a way that we knew was safe,
Yep.
and then transfer the information, not utilizing our network.
Okay.
It's like to an external hard drive, and then you
Yeah.
plug in the other one, so if it
Yeah,
infects,
and
it
then copy it.
infects the hard drive,
It's
not,
a
yeah,
Not a problem.
good plan.
Yeah. I've had too many cyber trains of like, don't pick up the USB stick in the parking lot.
Exactly, don't plug into the rental car.
I work in cybersecurity, so all this conversation, I was like,
Happy place, Carol, happy place.
Any other ads?
Yes, on section 6, the hard copy fee says 15 cents. I'm assuming is that for page?
Thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't know if I wanted to throw that out today. Co-op, yeah, just added per page over there for copy fees, and also down below in section 8B, the district will charge 15 cents per individual electronic communication, so it's per page of electronic communication. So I'm not sure if you want to have policy committee discuss whether it's per page or per communication, but I think the intent is per page.
and we did look up that RSA today, and it is per page.
Yeah, then I think we changed it.
Yeah, I think, let's, less ambiguity, the better, right? So,
Anything else, guys?
Give me 1 second, just make sure I get the note. All right, we're good.
All right, so all those in favor of all those in favor of accepting the second reading of EH-R as amended?
Thank you.
Thanks for discussion on that one. That was a big discussion last time as well. All right, we have another one that is new to district. We had our first reading on June 3rd, 25. I'll accept a motion to amend policy HIBAB, special education evaluations, in its entirety by replacing it with a copy provided with the agenda and accepting the second reading as amended.
So moved.
A second?
I is supposed to be independent, not individual. And I'd gotten this from legal, and of course I read it, and you know when you read something over and over, and you're like, oh no, that's right. So, the I should be independent, so I am very sorry, so that should be independent educational evaluation.
I totally understand that.
Yep.
You're like, what's there?
So now, since we're on this policy,
And
we have to adjust the number.
And the number, yeah, so I can't put a strike through while keeping the one,
Gotcha.
you know what I mean, and change all that. So, yeah, so that, as soon as that number one is deleted, everything else falls through.
And this is up to you, Gina, whether or not you want to make director of student services the assistant superintendent or not, that's up to you.
Director of Student Services is used in some of the other
It's
policies
used in a
we
lot of
use
policies, so we
today.
don't, I mean, obviously, we're not going back and changing that, but since this is a new one, that's up to you guys as a board.
Is that still part of your title? Like, are you Assistant Superintendent of Student, what is your title?
Assistant superintendent of student services is a mouthful. Assistant superintendent of student services.
I thought it was a little, like, if you go to the staff page and you see your title, and you see like assistant director of student services, I could see how some people get confused, so maybe if we have, but I also don't want to open up a can of worms if it's in lots of places.
Right, exactly, so that's just, and that's not to be decided, right, the second
Yeah.
just,
Something for third grade.
something to ponder.
I think it's okay if we decided to change it here for better clarity. I think it's okay that we're changing it here, and then, like, we'll continue to update it on other policies as we go. So if that, if that's our point, I feel okay about that, but also we can't keep.
I mean, as it's a role that can be under either title, you could also write assistant superintendent / director of student services. And then it covers anyone in this position.
Maybe when, I'm not sure, wherever you're listed in our, SAU employees, staff directory, maybe you should say, Lauren DeGenaro serves as the Director of Student Services, and Longhurst, whatever, just so that that's somewhere, so that when policies come up, it's like, oh, it's her,
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's still her. It's like an alias, otherwise known as director of student services. Yeah.
Any other feedback on this one, guys? I think there's just, it might just be the way it's in here.
Yeah.
It's just formatted
Yeah.
funny over the
Yes.
header.
Yeah.
So,
and some spacing and stuff that I'm sure I'll get.
Yeah, once we delete number one.
yeah,
Yeah.
it will all be fixed then. That's right. Excellent. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor to accept the second reading as amended of IHBAB? Thank you. All right. Our next one is also a second reading, with the first reading having happened in June. I'll accept a motion to amend by replacing will develop rules with have established procedures, replacing rules with procedures, and in the second paragraph by deleting and following recommendations, and inserting and parent input at the end, and accept the second reading of policy IKE, promotion and retention of students as amended.
So moved.
Second? Discussion.
So as is kind of outlined a little bit there in Carol's reading, the changes we made, or we added the language parent input when we were talking about what's the criteria for the promotion of students. And it felt more, the word procedure felt more accurate than the word rules. And then just this small change of change the word develop to have established.
Any discussion?
So I was trying to see, just because this is something that in everyday interactions with people gets brought up to me a lot, and I don't have an answer specifically for parents. That's about the whole redshirting thing, and I brought this up last time we met. So I went to the student handbook. Sorry, I had it on page 40 for the last note. And it does address promotion and retention, not specifically of that age group. And is that something that we should treat differently? Or would you say that this, do you feel that
Yeah, can you say again the beginning of what you said?
preschool to kindergarten, that idea of redshirting, of a kid who's right on the cusp, that could be either
For the
older for
birthday cutoff?
kindergarten? Yes.
For the birthday cutoff.
So you,
Yes.
you can redshirt at any year.
Right.
It's not just preschool to kindergarten.
I always
Yeah, that's.
only heard it in that regard. But that's essentially what I need, is like, is that considered with the same procedures for, and I'm sorry, I have this in front of me, and I had it earlier today.
Yeah, because the birthday cutoff, this is more like looking at the student's skill readiness, a different criteria, as opposed to a date cutoff that's established by the state, like it's not, promotion retention wouldn't be just, I don't know, I can see your point, I'm trying to like,
Because I've had parents who have kids on the cusp, and they're like, I want to hold my kid back. I
Right.
don't want my kid, but I'm told I cannot.
right,
And so I was like, I can't help you there.
I
And
guess
so
we
it
treat
is,
the same
so it's
way.
on page 19 of the student handbook, and you do reference policy IKE
Yeah,
as far as the procedures. It just doesn't make it clear if you are, and maybe we need it to be ambiguous, and it is case by case. The people I've talked to have felt like it wasn't case by case.
Sure.
But that's very anecdotal. So,
I was gonna say, it
well,
also
we could
says,
talk to the principals about it, too.
it also says considered, so, I mean, they're gonna look at
Right.
all of these things. So I could understand in a scenario where a parent wants to, quote, redshirt someone.
Sure.
And the district looks at them and says, okay, well, I've taken your input, and based on all the other things, I'm gonna tell you that that's not
Sure.
what is appropriate, or what we're going to agree to. They might feel pushed around a little bit, but like, the whole picture is considered at that point, right? It's not just, hey, I want to hold them back a year. Does that make sense?
yeah, I hear that. I'm just talking about the lived experiences of different people
Okay.
in that specific situation, but maybe I'm bringing
I
it
think
up
to your point,
because
it
it
does
has been
fall
brought up to
under
me.
this. I think to your point, it does fall under it.
Yeah.
I never quite thought about it for the kindergarten one, but it would fall under the same process of consideration.
So
we
this is
can-
where I
we can-
would
we can
refer
talk to the
people.
principals about it.
Okay.
If we were saying that this policy addressed that specifically, are there then changes that you would make to the policy?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm bringing up the issue because, as I've said, it's been brought up to me by the community, by a few members of the community. I brought it up last time, and it was told that it was going to be in the handbook, and I looked at the handbook, and I just didn't see that it was.
I mean, if this policy, we're saying this policy addresses that issue, one thing we could do is add language in here that makes that more clear, like add in language that is saying like, oh, that, something referencing birthdates, and birthday cutoffs. But I don't know that we.
So we have JEA, which really just talks about compulsory age of attendance shall be required of all children in accordance with RSA 193.1, which talks about, because kindergarten's not mandatory, it talks about
Yes,
first
yeah.
grade and when you're 6 by September 30th. So we utilize that as when you're in first grade, when you're supposed to be in kindergarten, if you're enrolling in our kindergarten. And then any variation from that cutoff, we would use the criteria identified in the handbook to determine if a different placement is more appropriate.
Okay, so actually JEA is a better spot to be talking about.
I mean,
JEA
it doesn't say much, it literally is one line, it references
Yeah,
RSA
it's just the
193.
dates.
Follow this.
But you're saying that it can be a conversation, just like any promotion retention with these procedures, if the child is demonstrating of any of these things, you look
Yeah,
at
so
their
we're going to
achievement,
follow
their
the
age, their
September
activity.
30th age cutoff. Any request to veer from that, we would utilize the procedures identified in the handbook.
Same ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion on policy IKE? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the second reading of policy IKE as amended?
Thank you.
Our next one also is a second reading. First reading happened in June. I will accept a motion to amend policy KI, school visitation and observation in its entirety by replacing it with the copy provided in the agenda and accept the second reading as amended.
So moved.
Second?
So
Discussion.
we had a lot of conversation last meeting about talking about observations and observers versus visitors and what exactly is this referring to? And so as a had this conversation, and they, amended, so they had, in developing their policy, addressed some of those issues, and so we, are now adopting, that as the baseline.
And there's a note, Brookline is in this document.
Yeah, and I don't know why.
Yeah. So,
See, we're already doing.
That's why,
continuity that you asked for, yeah.
yeah, we're one step ahead.
Yeah, thank you for making that. There was one of the things that I thought was unclear, and rereading this today, it's a great improvement. Thank you. Differentiation between visitors and observers. And by adding the by outside providers also adds another layer of clarity that was missing before.
I had a question on 3 paragraphs down, the last line in particular, that says visitors and volunteers are not permitted to bring any other family members when visiting. I almost feel like, this is silly, I almost feel like it's redundant given that the first paragraph specifically stipulates all persons other than staff and group pupils need to do X, Y, Z. So you wouldn't be permitted anyway to bring someone in with you without following the policies, because you're not, you can't just drag someone along just
Yeah.
because you want them.
It could be another child, though, that wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily go through the visitor process.
Because
or
they were a pupil, basically?
No, if there
Or
was
a
a younger
baby.
sibling,
Like a younger sibling who maybe isn't school age yet and wouldn't be, like if a parent brings,
Okay, so I guess the confusion, and I get what you're saying to some extent later. So in that scenario, like, so for example, if I brought my 3-year-old to see my second grader's presentation, right?
the answer is no.
Right.
Yeah.
But even if I check them in at the office,
Yeah, so the
because they're
communication,
not an adult.
so the communication goes out that no siblings are allowed to participate, et cetera. Sometimes siblings could be allowed,
Yes.
but whenever a parent are asked to participate in something, that is clarified.
Sure.
For example, it's more often allowed to bring a sibling up to this school, and the reason why is the students here are older and can better manage. It's much more difficult at Hollis Primary School, so it is 99.9% of the time not allowed. And that is why this language, and we had a good discussion about it, that is why this language is here. There are, first of all, there's not a lot of space. There's
sure.
a lot of little people that need a lot of supervision, and the addition of additional little people that need and require supervision that, maybe are the best behaved at home, but might, bolt in that situation. It becomes a safety concern, and a liability, to be honest. So it was very intentional to put that language there.
And when we were, Jonathan, just to add like extra details of what we talked about, right? So like one example of when someone, like a parent might be coming to volunteer in a classroom, and it would be difficult for them to have, like, first of all, I totally understand, right? Like, you have your 3-year-old home with you, what are you gonna do? Also, it's actually pretty tough to be volunteering in the second grade class and also watching your 3-year-old, right?
Yeah.
So that would not be something that would work. But for like the winter concert, right? The principal might say, if you have a kid that can sit on your lap, they can come with you to the concert.
Sure.
In which case, they would explicitly say that when they were sending out the, winter concert.
Right, and I guess my tricky part with the line is
Yeah.
just so there are limiting criteria to the invitation for someone to be coming to the school, which defines that they can or cannot bring a family member, but the policy here now specifically stipulates they can't bring a family member. So I'm just,
Well, it says
I
on the
understand the
list,
logic of
Let's say
what
there's a
you're-
mother and a father,
Sure,
so 2 family members,
Yeah.
and they've both completed the whole process, then they're fine to both come,
I
right?
get that.
If they both have permission and
What's-
complete the
Is
requirements.
there a specific line what's the specific line that?
It's the last line that says, third paragraph, last line, which says, visitors and volunteers are not permitted to bring any other family members when visiting unless specifically authorized by the building principal.
Yeah.
it allows for an exception.
Yeah, it does allow for an exception, it just,
What would you, what's, there something there that feels unclear to you that you think we need to change the language for?
I felt like it was implied from the first paragraph, and in general with the restrictions of you can't just show up at a school and walk in, that it would be not necessary to control by policy that particular aspect of it.
So I think, can I just chime in
Yeah,
for a
go
quick
for it.
second? So, yes, the first paragraph applies, and that language, I think, is kind of further clarifying, because leaving it ambiguous, they might be like, oh, well, they're not talking about my 3-year-old.
Got it.
So this is being like,
Or my
P.S., we are talking about your
And
3-year-old.
that's totally fine.
So this is, and, and I think if there's any other, I think if there was anything that you mentioned that might be,
So the only
hold on,
Yep,
that
sorry.
might be, a further clarification, I don't know if it's totally addressed, is it might just be if you're coming here to volunteer or whatever, you need to follow the rules of that activity or that volunteership or whatever, just as we were just saying, like, they can't come to this, but they could come to this.
So,
So if that would further clarify, but I think that this is necessary to just,
Yeah.
we're not just talking about adults, we're also talking about your other people.
absolutely. So I think the only secondary part about this that I'm curious about is, so this says shall visit a school, right? And I know I'm being
Which part are you
obtuse.
at now?
Just in general, the policy is talking about, the second paragraph, basically, no person shall visit a school. So, I'm gonna be non-obtuse, and then I will be obtuse a little bit, and just bear with me, I'm trying to poke at the policy a little bit so I understand it. So, the obtuse one is, we are currently in the school. This policy doesn't apply to public meetings held at the school or anything to that effect, right? Even though this policy says,
During the school.
if you visit a school.
It
Does
says
it say
during the school
During the
day.
school day.
Okay, so, and that helps with the second question I had, which was, and I'll give the practical example. So, my child's moving up to Hughes, there was a band meeting here to brief the parents. It was after school, or after the school day had finished, and quite a few parents brought their other siblings with them to be able to attend the meeting because they're single parenting for the day or whatever. This policy doesn't affect any of them because of that, and that's fine. That was why I was trying to make sure I got all the stuff that we're talking about.
Carol, can I just go back? What was there was something, Carol, that you said if you wanted to, you could make this more clear.
Well, we were saying, Gina was mentioning at the question that, and you were mentioning as
Yeah.
well, there may be, if you're a volunteer and they're going on a field trip, maybe you could have a sibling come or something like that, so there could be exceptions. So if there was language that said, for any volunteer or visiting things, I don't even know what to call them,
yeah.
instances, you just need to follow the rules specific to that activity as defined during sign up or something like that, you know?
Good. I think that unless specifically authorized by the building principal, I think covers a broad swath.
I agree.
Because the rules of a field trip would be authorized by the principal.
I think that,
It doesn't hurt.
yeah. Okay. I'm not married to it, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
suggesting that I could do to meet some of the criteria of what we were discussing. Great. So, all right, any other discussion on KI? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the second reading as amended of policy KI? 5-0. Okay. That concludes our public portion of the program. So we're going to need to go into non-public. Is there, do we need to,
I thought,
sorry, I saw the puzzle look on your
yeah, I
face.
thought JFAB, I guess
Oh.
JFAB maybe did not make it.
JFAB, was that on the policy memo? I don't think it was on the memo, but you're
We
right.
talked about it at our last policy meeting, and maybe it just didn't make it to our memo.
It's not on the memo.
That is my mistake, I
We'll do
apologize.
next month.
Because I thought it was going tonight. So, you want to throw JFAB on the agenda?
That's the teaser, I was like,
It's
that's my
coming.
next conversation.
Wait till the end of the credits.
Borrow your language for a second. And so now we're going to need to take a roll call vote. So I'll take a motion that the board by roll call go into non-public session discuss a matter which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of a person other than a member of the body or agency itself. And section D, consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property which, if discussed in public, would likely benefit a party or parties whose interests are adverse to those of the general community.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right.
Is that you, Ann? I'm sorry.
Yes. And so this is a roll call vote, so we'll start with you, Jonathan.
Jonathan, I.
And I.
Jess, aye.
Raphael, aye.
Carol Roy, aye. Body is now going into non-public session at 8:08 PM. We will not be conducting any business after this other than adjourning. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next month.